Back in 2017, I was a different person. I traveled to disappear. No itineraries, no crowded landmarks. Just me, a camera, and a hunger for quiet cities that the rest of the world had forgotten. I wasn't looking for trouble. I just wanted somewhere to walk until my mind went quiet. I chose a city that didn't even seem to have a name people recognized. It was just there. Gray stone, narrow alleys, and a heavy, ancient stillness. When I checked in, the hotel felt more like a tomb than a business. The receptionist didn't even look up from her ledger. She just slid a heavy brass key across the counter and said, under her breath, "Try not to stay out too late." I laughed it off. I've heard it 1,000 times in a dozen languages. Just local superstition, right? My room was on the 3rd floor. Outside the window, the balconies of the opposite buildings leaned in so close they almost touched mine, like they were whispering secrets across the street. I spent the evening editing footage, but by 11 p.m., the silence of the room started to feel heavy. It wasn't a peaceful quiet anymore. It felt like the air was missing oxygen. I grabbed my camera and headed out. The moment I stepped onto the pavement, the atmosphere shifted. Have you ever been in a city that felt completely abandoned, yet somehow occupied? There were no cars, no distant sirens, just the hum of the yellow streetlights and the sound of my own boots hitting the stone. I started walking, letting the turns take me wherever they wanted. But after 10 minutes, a cold prickle started at the base of my neck. I looked up at the windows lining the street. They were dim, lit by those flickering, sickly yellow bulbs. And then I saw it. A curtain in a 2nd-story window twitched, just a sliver of movement, as if someone had been watching me and stepped back the moment I glanced up. I slowed down. My heart gave a small rhythmic thud against my ribs. I told myself it was a curious local, nothing more. Then came the sound. Tap, tap, tap. Footsteps. Behind me. They were soft, steady, but they didn't quite match my rhythm. I stopped dead. The silence that followed was absolute. I turned around, expecting a shadow, a person, anything. But the street was a desert of gray stone, empty. I moved faster. The streets began to feel longer, the buildings more repetitive. I reached for my phone to check the GPS, but there was nothing. No bars, no service, just a black screen where the signal should be. I had full bars at the hotel. I turned a corner, desperate to find a main road, but I found myself on a street that looked identical to the one I'd just left. Same cracked pavement, same leaning balconies. That's when I noticed the lights. In the window where I'd seen the curtain move, the light went out. Then a window 3 houses down flickered and died. Then another. It wasn't a power surge. It was systematic. It felt like something was moving through those buildings, floor by floor, following my progress from the inside, extinguishing the light as it passed me. Tap, tap, tap. The footsteps were closer now. They weren't echoes. They were heavy, deliberate, and they were right behind the next corner. I rounded the bend, my breath coming in shallow gasps, and I froze. There was someone standing at the far end of the road, a silhouette in the fog. I felt a surge of pathetic relief. "Hey," I shouted, "can you help me? I'm lost." The figure didn't move. It was standing with its back to me, perfectly still. Too still. No shifting of weight, no breath visible in the cold air. I walked toward it, my camera clutched to my chest like a shield. "Excuse me?" When I was 20 feet away, I stopped. My survival instinct, the one we inherited from ancestors who were hunted by wolves, screamed at me to run. The figure didn't turn its body. It didn't move its shoulders. Its head simply rotated. It spun slowly, smoothly, 180 degrees until it was looking directly at me. I couldn't see eyes, just hollows of shadow. I backed away, and that's when I looked up. Every window on that street, dozens of them, now had a figure standing behind the glass. They weren't hiding anymore. They were all facing me, a gallery of silent, still watchers. I felt a hot breath on the back of my neck. I didn't look back. I ran. I ran until my lungs burned like they were filled with acid. Every turn I took led to the same street, the same broken sign, the same leaning walls. The footsteps stayed exactly 5 paces behind me, never gaining, never fading. I was a rat in a maze, and the walls were closing in. Suddenly, the hotel appeared. I didn't know how. I just crashed through the front doors, gasping, sweat stinging my eyes. The receptionist was still there. She looked at me with a tired, knowing pity. "You went out," she said. It sounded like a eulogy. "What is this place?" I whispered. She just sighed and looked back at her book. "They don't like tourists who wander." I didn't ask questions. I bolted to my room, locked the deadbolt, pushed a chair under the handle, and sat on the bed with my camera until the sun crawled over the horizon. I left the city an hour later. I didn't look back in the rearview mirror. I thought I was safe. I thought I'd escaped. But that night, I sat in a brightly lit cafe 3 towns away and opened my camera to delete the footage. There was only one file that night, a 3-minute clip of a window across from my hotel. In the video, you can see the dark glass of the building opposite mine. You can see the reflection of my own hotel room in that glass. At first, the room in the reflection looks empty, but then a figure moves. It wasn't in the building across the street. The video shows it clearly. It was standing inside my room, directly behind me, reaching out. And as I watched the footage, I realized, in the video, I never turned around.